Hey everybody, this is King Hall 100, and today we will be going over what makes the Monsterverse graphic novel Godzilla Dominion so special. This is a follow-up video to my What Makes Kingdom Kong so special video, so be sure to check that out if you haven't already. One of the primary reasons I feel Godzilla Dominion is so special is because we get more Godzilla. Just like the case was with Kong and Godzilla before the GVK Monsterverse era, there was a major lacking in Godzilla screen time. In 2014 in King of the Monsters, we get like 12-ish minutes of screen time for each film, and that's out of like 4+ hours. And even then, he's scattered throughout these films, so there isn't really enough time to develop his character. We as audiences don't have the time given to connect with Godzilla or feel for him, which means that the stakes later on in the film aren't as compelling or immersive because we aren't as invested in the character of Godzilla as the writers would like us to be. And I think it's safe to say that neither set of human characters in 2014 or 2019 were all that compelling either. So the tie-in novels like Aftershock and Awakening, they followed pretty closely behind, where Godzilla still gets very little time to shine, and when he does, he's either fighting monsters or chasing them down, so meaning once again there's no time to connect to him as a character. So ultimately we're only there for the monsters, but now the issue is that the monsters aren't compelling either. We aren't connecting with them on any real level because there's no screen time to allow for that. And that was a major problem throughout the Monsterverse up until the GVK era. And what Godzilla Dominion does so brilliantly is that it gives us a story entirely dedicated to Godzilla. What this story does is that it cuts out human characters entirely, giving us more Godzilla screen time the Monsterverse desperately needed up to this point. The story gives us the time we need to actually form an emotional connection to Godzilla as a character, rather than a plot force or object, which is what Godzilla genuinely felt like beforehand. And the lack of human characters is what primarily makes this novel so special, because this works in a visual medium like a novel as opposed to a film. The reason this would be is because narration is a lot more fitting for a book that is text-based and driven by visuals rather than a film, which, sometimes uses narration, but mainly is driven by story and showing rather than telling. With no human characters at all in a text-based story, we get more insight into Godzilla's personality and overall psychology. We get to see how he thinks, what he cares about, what his morals are defined by, and just why Godzilla defends us teensy humans. And that's something that we haven't truly gone across most Godzilla media, is actually looking into Godzilla's mind and seeing why he does the things he does. It's honestly some excellent character expansion, and it's easier to do in a book because you don't have to worry about pacing regarding other plot lines or storylines. You don't have to worry about the show don't tell rule, because with a novel you're able to tell the readers how Godzilla is feeling, as long as we see a coherent story just gradually drawing everything out. What I love about this novel is that they don't just go, Godzilla is sad, instead they elaborate upon it in an interesting way. They show you why Godzilla feels how he does. The story and what is happening is enough to fill the gaps. There is a lot of symbolism going on in this story, and that's what further lends to how Godzilla, who's ultimately an animal and natural creature of the planet, sees the world. It feels natural. There's a really cool moment where instead of them just saying Godzilla is natural and the world is his, it's described as, the depths have always been an extension of himself. The waters deep and shallow, the foundations and hollows of the earth, part of him. That's what I'm talking about. They go into depth, and it's written in a way that seems quite fitting for how this Godzilla would think, or how he would speak or see things, So, the lack of humans and narration in the form of a novel is what puts this above a lot of Monsterverse entries and Godzilla entries in general. People have been wanting a Godzilla film with no humans at all, and I don't think this would ever work. If it were a short film, then maybe it could, and if it were a graphic novel like this, then it can also work. But come on, a full-on 2+ hour movie released in theaters, I don't think would ever be able to work in the slightest. It'll get very boring very quickly. And maybe not for us hardcore Godzilla fans. I know I can sure as shit watch 6+ hours of Godzilla just fighting titans. But for most general audiences, that would be the most boring thing in the world. Like, I was in King of the Monsters with my cousin Nate, who's in his 30s, and my little cousin Bella, who's like 8. And they both fell asleep during the final battle of King of the Monsters. And I've seen other people say the same thing too, so too much of something isn't usually a good thing. Film-wise, being able to explain Godzilla's feelings would be very hard without a tool like narration. And with narration, the film would feel cheap or tacky. Explaining Godzilla's feelings without narration is absolutely a possibility in these movies, but that's still a tall order. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, but it can be done, and it's what I hope these future entries do, otherwise the franchise will go stale very quickly. I know there were talks of like a Godzilla BC film being wanted by Michael Dougherty, I don't think a Godzilla BC film with no humans could ever work. A graphic novel or short film can definitely work, but not an actual full-length feature film. Cutting out the humans in the sense of a novel can work, and Dominion does it beautifully. So the primary reason Godzilla Dominion is so special is because it cuts out human characters and gives us a narrative entirely based upon Godzilla, where we learn more about him as a character whilst giving him a lot more screen time, which again the Monsterverse desperately needed. And that's all, video over. Thanks for watching, guys! I'm kidding. Another way this story is so special is that we get many more amazing new monsters and even improves upon existing ones. This novel introduces us to a new monster named Amuluk, and much like with Camzots from Kingdom Kong, Amuluk has shot up very high on my list of favorite monsters in all of media. I just love how insane his design is. He seems so alien, yet also so earthly because he's so made of vegetation. And I'm just a big fan of this monster. I really like his abilities as well, such as the fact that he has elasticity attacks, so he can basically just conform his body, or he's able to regenerate throughout dead vegetation. That's a really neat idea, and I think it translates very well into the design and overall creature. I would have liked him to shine a bit more and be shown as more powerful. Maybe show him tangle with Godzilla rather than instantaneously submit. I think that would have been cool. You could honestly just straight up cut the fight between Godzilla and that genitor fish swarm thing. Just cut that fight entirely and just show Amuluk tangling with Godzilla for a few pages. Not to shit on that fight, but you know I'm a sucker for Amuluk. Point made, Amuluk's a badass. Hey, remember Scylla? That spider crustacean kaiju from King of the Monsters that wasn't as show-stealing as Behemoth and Methuselah? Yeah, Dominion vastly improved Scylla as a monster by giving her a fight with Godzilla. I know I would pronounce it as Skyla, but a lot of people want me to pronounce it as Scylla, so I'm gonna just do it for the sake of it. I don't know what it is about this fight between Scylla and Godzilla, but seeing Scylla utilize her abilities against Godzilla just made her a lot more interesting as a monster. Not to mention the environment made the fight a lot cooler for me as well. It's got some mid to late 2000s Godzilla, early dry spell, Atari Games summer vibes. I know that probably doesn't make sense to any of younger audiences, but if you grew up during this drought after Final Wars like I did, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyways, my point is that the environment looks very fitting and unique for this kind of fight, and I love seeing all of Scylla's new abilities, and she didn't use all of her abilities. I know she has an ice breath attack she for some reason didn't use, but they definitely improved this monster. She's a lot more interesting and memorable, and it's a great fight. It is one of my Monsterverse favorites. This novel also introduces Tiamat into the lore, which is nice because Tiamat is an excellent addition to the library of Godzilla monsters. Honestly, Tiamat is such a unique monster as well. It's just really cool to see that Legendary has been killing it with their monster designs lately. I like how Tiamat is able to put up a good fight against Godzilla, and that since it's an aquatic monster primarily, it's in its element. And leaning more into the character of Godzilla, that's just kind of an aspect I appreciate for the character throughout the franchise, and some of his movies and comics like Rulers of Earth. They show that Godzilla isn't the best at underwater battles, nor is he the best at land battles, but he's very much that happy medium and the best of both worlds. And again, that's what makes the character of Godzilla so appealing to me when you look at him as a fighter. Take a monster like Tiamat, right? He's primarily water-based. Godzilla wrecks him on land. Take a monster who's primarily land-based, and Godzilla wrecks them in the water. That's just a rough example, but it's a great power dynamic that this novel shows very well. But again, I really love Tiamat's design as well as the fight he has with Godzilla. It's another monster who truly shines in the comic and is one of my favorites in the Legendary series so far. Monsters like Behemoth have become fan favorites as well. While he does have some time to shine in the comic, he doesn't have that many great feats. He kind of gets wrecked throughout the whole thing. So I do wish we got to see him kick some ass, and this sort of brings me into an issue I see with these fights. And it's more of a pre-existing issue throughout the Monsterverse, but Godzilla is he's too OP in these fights. He's considered to be especially weak since his wounds apparently haven't fully healed, which could mean that if he were at full power, he'd stomp a hole in most of these guys. If it were up to me, I would much rather prefer to have Godzilla at full power in this comic, since he should have a healing factor and can just tax some nuclear power plants to gain energy, which he doesn't do for some reason, despite him attacking a nuclear sub in Awakening for what seemed to be the same reason, so yeah, doesn't make any sense. But it kind of makes these monsters less awesome, knowing that Godzilla would stomp them when he's at full power. So I would have preferred Godzilla to be at full power and just see other Titans give him a good fight. Show him giving him a good run for his money, and ultimately Godzilla still wins in the end, but at least, it's it's not a bad thing. It just makes Godzilla's victories more earned while also giving us more entertaining fights. Now, I swear, I got labeled as like a Godzilla hater for saying that about the Mutos and Ghidorah and Kong, and people were like, oh, you hate Godzilla! And I'm over here like, nah, bro, just make the other monsters stronger, you know, have Godzilla maybe lose a battle or two, or show Godzilla struggle with his fights. Let's see him pull some wins out through an intense fight and effort. And, you know, I mean, seeing the plot always work in his favor by him either being weakened or outnumbered doesn't make these fights more compelling or entertaining, you know? The fights are still an issue with Legendary, where Godzilla's either incredibly weak, and if he was more powerful, he'd wipe the monsters easily. That's, it's just a big problem for me personally, but due to talks of a new Monsterverse entry, I've made videos recently on where to take Godzilla or Kong next, so that's why I'm not going to make a new video about that new GVK sequel announcement, but in this new film, just make sure the fights aren't as one-sided, where under the circumstances Godzilla would always win. Just give us more compelling fights with a power-shifting dynamic, as that is what makes a fight more enthralling and immersive. I've gone on about this a lot, but I just want better written fights to improve Godzilla as a character. That's all. I pretty much covered everything in this video, but I do want to reiterate a topic that I covered in a very, very old video. I think this novel is special in that it also significantly improves the character of Godzilla by acknowledging and somewhat retconning an issue I had with the character before the GVK era. Now, before the GVK era, I caught a lot of flack for saying that I thought Godzilla wasn't a good alpha since he seemed very biased towards the humans. And, you know, fans kept proclaiming he's the restorer of balance, but balance, but I thought that wasn't the case. You know, I thought the scales were tipped very much towards the humans rather than the Titans. Humans were capturing Titans and enslaving them. They were destroying the environment, doing a multitude of other things that I covered in that video, and Godzilla wasn't punishing them for it. He was defending them, especially after King of the Monsters, where they tried to literally kill him. You can watch that video to see all the issues I had with his character and why I didn't think he was good at restoring balance and being a good alpha like everyone was claiming. But the point is, what this novel did was improve his character by actually making him punish humans who deserved it. So in the story, humans capture a Titan named Akika, who's, you know, aka she's the Monsterverse's version of the Kraken, and Godzilla just fucking demolishes an oil rig and the people responsible. It's amazing. It's exactly what I was asking for before the GVK Monsterverse era. Like, I'm fine with Godzilla protecting humans, right? But if they step out of line, he should punish them just like he would for Titans who step out of line. So that was a significant character improvement I absolutely appreciate from this novel. I highly recommend you guys give this novel a read, because as kaiju fans, you won't regret it. And that about covers it. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you all enjoyed. There's plenty of more coming soon, and thank you guys so much for sticking with me. Please leave a comment letting me know what you thought about Godzilla Dominion, what you liked or disliked. I would love to hear it. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you soon. Much love. Bye-bye.